Chris Rostron, Head of Rugby League Cares. During these unprecedented times, we've been working closely with the RFL, the Rugby League World Cup and Super League to bring you the Rugby League United campaign. The campaign was designed to help the public in Rugby League to improve their general well-being and mental fitness during the lockdown. The campaign is funded by the mental health charity Mind, and we're asking all those that have had access to the support to provide us feedback through a completely anonymous survey online. The survey will only take you 2 minutes and it will provide us with the vital information we need to be able to continue to bring you these services absolutely free of charge. So, hopefully, you'll take part in the survey, which can be found via a link on the website below. So, to you, thanks for taking part in the campaign. We hope it's been of benefit to you all. But more importantly, thanks for supporting Rugby League and Rugby League Cares during these unprecedented times. Thank you.
Okay, hello and welcome. My name's Emily and I'm here today on behalf of Rugby League Cares, and we're going to be running a session on managing emotions. This is part of our wider mental fitness programme, and really managing and understanding our emotions is a fantastic way to start to build your own mental fitness. So I'm in great company today. I'm being joined by Kevin and Damien. Just going to ask you guys now to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your careers and why it is that you've got involved with workshops like this one. So first of all, over to you, Kevin.
Hi, so my name is Kevin Laroyer. I'm French and I currently play for Halifax. Otherwise, previously I played for Toulouse Olympique, Catalan Dragon, Hulkea, Castleford, just to name a few. And I got involved with Rugby League Care because a few years ago, myself as well faced some challenging time, and they really helped me out. And today I feel like it's my turn to give back to the community for the help I receive, really.
Amazing. Thank you very much for getting involved. And Damien, how about yourself?
G'day guys, my name's Damien Gibson. I've spent time playing in the NRL with Newcastle Knights and North Queensland Cowboys before moving across to the UK to play for Leeds Rhinos, Cass Tigers, Salford City Reds and Halifax. I got involved in this program because I just thought it was a fantastic project. Everyone, I've realised that at some time in their life is going to go through some tough times, which I did a few years back, and I realised once I was in those tough times, I wasn't comfortable talking at the time. Once I got comfortable with that and being able to express my emotions, it's amazing how much you find other people are struggling too. And speaking to a lot of the ex-players, and they were going through the same thing, but because you're not brave enough to talk to people at the time, you know, you tend to bottle it up and you don't realise, but a lot of people are going through the same thing. So I think this scheme gives us the chance to give back and help some people who are going through tough times like I was a few years ago. So I think it's a fantastic project and I'm really excited about being involved in it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And just to give you an idea about who I am, why I'm here today. I'm not a rugby league player myself, but I, from a professional point of view, I'm training to become a psychotherapist and a counsellor. I also work in professional sport alongside, getting involved in mental health and wellbeing projects like this one, really just trying to open up these conversations and for players themselves, but also the sporting community that surrounds the sport. Just trying to build a healthy relationship with your own mental health, I think is a huge part of what we're trying to do here. I also work for a charity called Switch the Play that helps players to prepare for a life after sport. I think a lot of the work that I do is based on my own personal experiences as these things happen. So I spent a lot of time as a child playing as many sports as possible, you know, rugby, netball, swimming, whatever I could. But I had trouble with myself with injury throughout my teens, and that's something that's stuck with me now and I still deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of cut off my ability to get involved and play sport. So I think, you know, there's no chance in the fact that I ended up studying sport and studying career-ending injuries, and a lot of those experiences helped me come to terms with my own injury experiences too. So hopefully from some of those professional and personal experiences, you know, I can bring some of those in today and just start to have some conversations and normalize these things and begin to understand how we can better manage our own emotions. So that's me. Thank you very much. We will get straight into it now, guys. So first of all, what are emotions? Emotions are defined as a physical response to change. And the way that I like to think about emotions is very much, we hear emotions, we hear the word feelings often quite at the same time. And I like to think of them as two sides of the same coin, really. So if you think about emotions as one side, they're very much a physical response. They're quite immediate, quite out of our control, very much automatic, often very much feel them in our bodies. And then feelings, I think, are that longer term mental associations we make to that initial reaction we have. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. But when we talk about emotions, we're not just talking about negatives, we're talking about the positives too. We've got examples like love, joy, pride, empathy, hope, and happiness on the more positive sides of the scale. And then on the negatives, we're talking about things like regret, hate, fear, anger, shame, guilt, and sadness. And I think it's a really important point to make here that when we talk about emotions, it's okay to experience this whole spectrum of them. You know, if you do experience a negative emotions, you're not experiencing ill mental health. You're just being a human being at the end of the day, because that's what we do. We experience all of these on the scale. And we're all going to experience them in very different ways and express them in very different ways. So just looking at these emotions here now that we've got on the screen, Kevin, I'm just going to go to you to ask you about some of your personal experiences of when you've experienced some of these emotions, either inside or outside of your rugby career. You can talk us through some of them?
Yeah, of course. For example, fear. I remember back in 2016, I was playing at Turkey at the time, and that year we got relegated. And as a result of that, I lost my contract. But this happened literally 2 days after I just bought a brand new house. I remember on the Monday being told there was no contract for me there anymore. And I remember I felt just fear, like big fear when I had like my really like a big pain on my belly. I feel hot, sweaty constantly. And remember coming back home and seeing my ex-partner at the time, not back at work yet because we had just a newborn baby in this brand new house when I had a mortgage to pay and no contract anymore, so no incomes. And I just like fear over will I find a club anymore? Will I be able to look after provide my family? How am I going to do? Because obviously at the time I realized I only had rugby. So it was a really, really challenging time. Not really nice to live. Then I've got another one, which is anger. So recently I went back to France to visit friends and family, obviously spending since March during the COVID at home. Obviously in England, apart my son, I'm on my own. So it was kind of a lonely time. So I decided to, when the French border reopened, to travel back to France and spend time with family and catch some sun as well. Yeah. And when I was there enjoying the meal with family, it was a Friday night, 10:30 in France, or 9:30 in England, and I received just text messages from my ex-partner who decided to announce me that out of courtesy, she said she would introduce our son to a new partner. And I remember at the time, I just felt loads of anger because I was like, why is she waiting me to be back in France to announce me that on a Friday night? Then I would say anger. Then I felt worried as well because straight away I started to make assumption that this guy will replace me as a dad. Mm-hmm. And obviously I decided, usually it was back in the day, I would just straight away jump into it and not being really nice, but I decided to keep it cool and wait before replying. And instead, I decided to open it to my friends who were there with me. So that made me jump into happiness. Just speaking up about those emotions, I feel really, really angry, and I didn't understand why she was doing that. They just calm me down and try to see the problem on a different prospect. And which after just really calmed me down, and I felt more happy. So happiness, like, which is spending time at home with my loved one in my hometown, that can really, really affected my mood in a positive way. Just doing things that I used to do, going to the pastry in the morning, just like silly little things, but that add to my happiness really. Which now I'm ready to get back to UK and tackle the next challenges that will arise.
Amazing. So you've experienced quite a few on there, just in one, from one kind of trigger, as it were. You've kind of gone
Yeah.
from one side, and then the way you've managed it is to put some space between you and your behaviour, and rather than maybe initially going straight back in the text, do some things you know that are going to help you have a response that you want, rather than the one that maybe your body wants to give you.
Yeah, definitely, and it has a positive impact because I respond maybe 24 hours later, really calm and relaxed texts. Then after we had a FaceTime conversation just a few days ago, which I've just said my point of the story, and we managed to have like a conversation, and now I can see the relationship between us is far better. So I just tried for this emotion to take to apply what I've seen during counseling session with my therapy during my challenging time. Really try to apply that on myself. Don't respond really active, just calm down and speak out really. I think the fact I speak out to my friends really helped me to have all the side of the stories, because in those times you kind of think yours is the better one. When sometimes when you hear different voices, it can really put you in different perspective and take the best decision.
Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes the thought in our head isn't just we think it's the only one and that's the only way, but actually taking a step back and reaching out to other people can be a really helpful step to do that. Thank you very much for sharing that one. And how about you, Damien? What's your personal take on emotions?
Well, I've got a bit of a story that's probably more recent, not rugby related as such, but I've been going through a pretty tough time recently, which has been leaving me quite stressed and in a negative state of mind, which I just couldn't seem to get out of that funk. And it was really affecting me, my home life, everything like that. And I was quite negative. And then the thing that changed it for me was my daughter had her first birthday just recently as well. And just that situation on its own got me in a positive state of mind, and it got me out of that funk. It just took my train of thought away from those negative thoughts and focused on something that was positive, and that really did the trick. And so now I feel a lot better about things because I couldn't shake it. I tried speaking with friends, and as Kevin said there, I think that's a massive thing. I've tended to, instead of trying to react to things negatively as I used to, now I try and take some time. And I think what Kevin said there is fantastic. You take your time. You don't react straight away because you're going to react the wrong way. And you take time and you get different perspectives. And sometimes it mightn't even be that. It might be just someone just chatting and opening up with your feelings, which make you feel a lot better. You know, they don't have to give you the answers straight away. It might be just talking about it, which gives you that release. So, so that was just something that happened to me recently, and now I'm in a better way for it, just because of my daughter's birthday, and it took my focus from negative to positive.
That's great to hear. And as you say, we have those kind of go-tos once you do learn to start to manage it that might work sometimes, but maybe in this instance that kind of wasn't enough, and you're still in that funk, as you say, and just you needed something else to take you out of it. I think it as well, the point you made there about just reaching out and just talking, and you're not looking for answers for anyone. So if you are that other person in this situation, and a friend comes to you or a family member comes to you, you know, it's really just important to know that you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a listening ear, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you both very much. Okay, we'll move on. And now we're just going to talk about emotions and just break them down a little bit and look at the three components that make up an emotional experience as it is. So we've seen that we all have very different experiences of it, dependent on the environment, dependent on who we are as people as well. And we then express these in very different ways. So that's kind of our subjective component, is how we experience an emotion, because that will all be very different. So for instance, some of us will be very comfortable with anger. I'm personally not very comfortable, so I like to kind of push it down and do anything I can to not be with that emotion. But other people will be very happy just to kind of lash out and respond. Or as Kevin was talking earlier, you know, the useful thing to do maybe in response to that, particular emotion is to give yourself a bit of space and to have the response you want. So we're very subjective because we're all very different. Then we've got the physiological component, which is very much our automatic bodily response in reaction to that emotion. And this is outside of our control. It comes from a very unconscious place in our brains. So we will react essentially before we sometimes know we have. So sometimes, people talk about seeing red, and this kind of like feeling just comes over them. For instance, I think, like, particularly with threat and anger, if we're in a stressful environment, I like to think of like our bodies are telling us something, and these are very different for each of us. And I call these like our personal stress signals. So for instance, a physiological component to threat and stress and fear can be, for one person, a really increased heart rate. For another, it can be like sweaty palms. Someone else, it can be thoughts just start to go around and around in their head. So again, these are very individual. These are very different for each and every single one of us. And then we've got the expressive component, which is the way that we actually behave in response to these two components. And this is the bit that we can start to have a little bit more control over if we put a little bit of space between the physiological and the expressive. And this is the bit about understanding our emotions and learning to then manage them, to have the behavior that we want rather than maybe the behavior that our body is telling us to respond with. And they all play very different functions and purposes in the way that we respond. So for instance, I think I can draw an example here. When I started doing workshops of going into professional sports clubs, so I'm a relatively young female in a quite male-dominated world, going into a room of 40 rugby league players, a little bit daunting the first time I did it. So I'm thinking, right, this is new to me. The reason I'm feeling a little bit of nerves here, that's the emotion, is because it's important to me that I do this right, and because I care about what we're going to be talking about today. But equally, what am I going to be faced with? So then you start to feel those physiological, the heart's going a little bit, my voice is going a little bit up and down. But actually, just taking a second to think, okay, no, actually, this is just my body getting me ready. Like I can flee this room like it's my mind telling me to do right now, or I can listen to it and think, no, this is just because it's important and we want to get it right. So it's actually just my body getting me ready to perform. So just slightly reframing it in that moment can then switch me to then being ready to perform rather than ready to run away. So that's me. I don't know about you guys, rugby matches, pretty high stressful environments sometimes. Can you, Damien, recognise any of these responses in a situation?
Well, for me, it got me thinking back to when I played, and the night before, my nerves were just out of control. Just so nervous about the game the next day, and you're running through so many different scenarios in your head. And a lot of times you're trying to be positive, but in your mind you're visualizing, and you're seeing yourself drop a ball or miss a tackle at crucial times, and it makes you even more nervous. And then as I got older, I realized those nerves were a good thing, and it was actually, as you said, they're preparing you for your event. In my case, it was the game. They're preparing me for the game, and the more nervous I got, the better I usually played. It was the games when I was more relaxed and not so worried and stressed and nervous that I didn't usually perform well. So those nerves I used with experience to my advantage down the line. So they were a good thing in the end.
So you, again, just, it's that process of reframing, just understanding what's this for? Manage to swap it to a positive.
Yeah.
Talk us through, what's that experience like of when you don't feel those, and you say it wasn't such a positive impact on your performance. What was going on there?
I just think I went into the games a little bit too confident, and when you're relaxed, you're not focused. So I wasn't focused. I wasn't thinking about the game as much because I thought I had it covered. I thought I'd done all the work, and my mind was elsewhere because I wasn't focusing on the game. So I was thinking about other things that may have been externally taking up my time then. So I wasn't focused. Looking back now, I wasn't focused on the game enough, which in turn didn't make me nervous. I didn't care enough at the time. So, I thought it might have been an easier game, or I had something else going on in my life, which took my focus away from rugby, which is what you needed to focus on at the time. And as a result, I went out and and didn't perform anywhere near as well. You know, I probably wouldn't do my goals the night before. I hadn't been switched on, and just that relaxed frame of mind where thought I had it covered, I didn't.
Yeah. So that just shows that, you know, where our minds are and different things in our environments can have such an impact on this stuff and how we respond and therefore how we behave.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, right, moving on. So we've looked a little bit about what emotions are, what they're made up of. We've talked as well about how they do serve a purpose, and they're a bit like signals in the moment from our body telling us what we need. So we've got 8 basic emotions stated here. We've got anger, and often that's to fight against a problem. Anticipation is when you're looking forwards and you're planning and maybe you're a little bit nervous about that. Joy can often remind us what's important in life, and that can be a really important thing to listen to as well as the negatives. Trust is about connection. Fear is very much a very kind of primal response in our bodies, which is always looking to protect us. Surprise is an element of focus. Sadness, again, can be about connection to those around us. Disgust is quite a bodily one as well. It can be quite an instant reaction to something you're wanting to spell out of your life and get rid of. So each of these have a different function, a different purpose, but ultimately they're always there to help us, to protect ourselves, and so we can be in survival mode before we can do anything else. So before we can perform really well, we've got to make sure we're safe and we can survive, then we can thrive, whilst always trying to avoid danger. So they're looking out for us, really, our emotions. We've just got to learn to listen to them. So Kevin, can you give us an example of, you know, some of your lived experiences really of using these emotions in a positive or a negative way?
So yeah, so for example, before we played at Wembley the final, I was feeling really stressed before the event, and I was starting to have nightmares about, I was imagining I forget my gum shield or my boots, or I didn't know how to pass the ball anymore. And to try to manage those emotions, I did some hypnotherapy, try to really calm me down, and I was seeing a therapist at the time who give me some little sentences and words to keep instilling in my head. And it really worked. When I go into the game, obviously it was a really stressful event because I never played in a final before, so I was really stressed. And I remember in the change room before the game, I was like doing this exercise she gave me and those little sentences. And when we came out to for the warm up, it was it became a positive stress. Like you feel pumped and really excited. And despite the result of the game, it went quite okay as a personal level. So I was happy. At the end, when I realized I succeeded to manage my emotions really. Otherwise, the fear, obviously, when I lost my contract, like I said before, because I only had rugby, I was really stressed and didn't know what I would do. But this woman is called Julie Major, used to work for Rugby Castle, really helped me out to see and anticipate what I could do if I don't play rugby anymore. So, for example, I applied for a university degree, and really this shift around everything, because later when I was at Lee again, I went into a similar situation where literally I lost my contract as well. But I was so much less stressed than when it happened at IKEA, because I knew I'm working for something aside as well towards not having just rugby in my life.
Yeah.
And even now, obviously during the COVID, my study really helped me out. So now I can move into the anticipation emotion. So when the COVID and the lockdown happened, I really felt like past symptoms were coming back, where I could maybe stay in the living room, just sat in silence, not doing much of myself. And really, like you said before, like I tried to label what was this emotion, and if I really wanted this emotion, which I didn't wanted that, obviously, So like I said, I try to look forward and make a plan. So I really apply to myself because I have to reorganize everything. Obviously, I didn't have to travel anymore to uni or to training or prepare for a game, take my son for nursery. So I really put a plan in place and a really strict plan. So for example, I had my son quite a lot. So I would wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and try to study until 12. But 8 o'clock, my son will wake up. I'll have a breakfast with him, then try to entertain him and still working. Then from midday to 3 o'clock, I will dedicate myself to train, to stay fit and healthy. And the rest of the day, I will just dedicate the rest of the day for my son. And really that changed a lot, like doing some quality stuff with him, because usually when you have him after school or nursery, it's quite really rushy. You have to put him to bed, make him eat, and all this kind of thing, and you don't really spend quality time.
Yeah.
And this COVID period really allowed me to spend quality time with him. And after a few weeks, for example, his French language really kicking out, and that's something really, really pleased me. And on the other side as well, my uni, all my grade went through the roof, so it really pleased me as well because I had a plan and it worked. And again, I just doing some DIY project with my son, like a little playhouse in the garden, and just see him really happy, make me forget what's happening around. And just after when I ended out all my uni assignment, obviously it was a big chunk of hours that I wasn't committed to my study anymore, and I started to feel those past symptoms coming back. So I was okay. So I sat down again, try to label what it was. Do I want that? No, I don't want that. What can I do to monitor those emotions? So when the French president said the border reopened, what I did, they just filled my car and drove down back to France, because I knew that's what I felt I needed after spending that much time since March to June just on my own and my son. I needed some just to get back at home, refresh, get some sun, get some French food, see friends, family, doing things. And again, like the situation with rugby was pretty stressful, and we didn't know what would happen. But I was like, okay, this is a time I can use. I haven't spent summer in France for maybe 8 years since I left. So I was like, this is the occasion to make the most of it. And because I probably won't get this opportunity anymore. And really having a plan and look at different options. And after being a bit hard with myself, like to stick to the plan, because sometimes, like you said before, you have some positive and negative emotion in the same hours, or sometimes in 1 minute. So just like try to label and really have a plan and always come back to the plan. So I remember I had loads of notes, and all the time coming back to those notes helped me to refocus and stick to this plan.
Awesome. So something that initially was like really daunting and it felt quite overwhelming, and those symptoms coming back in that, you know, you just didn't want to go to, just having, you know, the ability to step back from it, recognize it, and then put strategies in place that, you know, work for you, were a game changer really in how you've had this experience. It sounds like there's been some real positives from it.
Yeah, hopefully it will stay like that. But yeah, it was really, really positive. But it's something that you have to keep working all the time, practice, and you get better. And I can feel from before, I used to have the therapy when I was struggling to do that, and I feel like I'm getting better at it. I still have some bad days, but most of all, I managed to let it go and really refocus on what I can control really.
I think that's a huge point as well, that you've got to work at it, that this stuff it can be simple, but doesn't mean it's easy. It's, you know, like you guys all have loads of experience throughout your rugby careers of having a skill that you need to build and work on, and this I think is a bit like that. It's a skill, isn't it? And it's finding out what works for you and finding out what doesn't work for you, and then practicing that and doing more of that. And that's a massive way to build your own mental fitness, I think. Okay, and thinking about the rugby world and thinking about some of these emotions, I'm curious, is there, you know, it's a male-dominated world, rugby league. Are some of these emotions more acceptable to talk about than others in some of your experiences?
Oh, definitely. In the rugby league
Yeah,
world, you're supposed to be this big, hard, tough rugby player who doesn't have emotions, who does, unless they're anger or, things like that. So, as a guy, it's that male bravado thing where you go out and you've got to be the big, tough guy. You're the rugby player. You don't feel any fear or anything like that. And you can't talk about it. But actually, we are human and everyone has those emotions. And the more you talk about it, the better off you are. I remember games where I was down injured and I had to get on my head. I had to get something like 20 stitches, and they sent out the doctor to get me off. And I'm thinking, oh, they're going to be worried about me. They just got me stitched up and got me straight back out there, And then afterwards, I'm thinking, oh my lord, that's like, am I being soft there? But then all the boys get their arm around you and check that you're okay, and that's when you sort of felt a lot better about things. A lot of times, a lot of players, the old school in particular, you just had to be tough and get on with it. But now I think people are realizing that you have to talk, and boys do have emotions. And I've spoke to so many ex-players who have gone through the same thing as I have. And as soon as you open up and chat to them, and that's the hardest bit, taking that first step, you open up and speak to them. And then all of a sudden they have a flood of conversation just coming out. And you realize that, hey, they're in the same position as me. But if I hadn't had that sense to be able, and that comfort to be able to speak about it, they would never have spoken back to me, because you have this sort of thought that you have to be tough. You're not allowed to express emotions as a guy. And it's just having that courage to talk about it for the first time. And then you realize that, hey, other people are in the same situation. Yeah. So, don't feel like you can't talk, because that's the best thing I ever did, talking to people about it. And taking time, as Kevin said earlier, your emotions change on a daily, it can be minute by minute basis. And you can go from anger and sadness to joy. So you can go through a whole range of emotions, and something as small as a song can trigger a memory, a positive or a negative memory, and you're constantly changing all the time. And it's sometimes you just jump into how you react to it. And as Kevin said, you want to have some stress management and some things that you can fall back on, which work for you. And that's going to be different for everybody. How you deal with things is different for everyone. So finding out what works for you.
100%. And Kevin, have you had an example or an experience of when you've had that same kind of concern maybe about opening up, and then it's been a good thing? Can you relate to that at all?
Yeah. So after KR, when I signed for Castleford, it was a really challenging time when I was going through depression, really. And I remember at the time a paper wanted to do an interview about my story, about what happened to me. And I was really unsure about doing it, because it was a time when I felt really ashamed about the situation. Like I wasn't coping well with it, but finally my ex-partner convinced me to do it, so I've done it. And when it's been published, I was really, really stressed, and I felt lots of fear about how the other people will react, because obviously from early age, when I started rugby, all I can hear is like, come on, you need to man up, or when you'll be in pain, like, oh, come on, you play rugby, or you man, this kind of thing that just like sticking to you, and you tend to think this is the way to behave, which now I realize is not. So when the interview being published, I came back the next day at training, and I had a few players who came over to me with loads of compassion, and congratulate me for opening up, and like Damien said, some of them opened up to me and shared some experience they were going through or they had gone through, and offered, like, if I needed to speak or anything like that, they will be there. And I was really pleased about that, because the value that rugby gives, or sports, and I really felt those values, like we are in the same team, in the same boat, and we don't leave a partner on a side. We take him with us, put the arm around him, and try to help him out. And it was a really nice outcome, and really speaking up really made the difference, because maybe the other person might feel the same, and if they see you can open up, they will open up as well. And after having this conversation and also share experience and how to deal with those emotions, it can be really, really useful, because sometimes you can realize the way you deal with some emotion aren't really the right thing, and maybe listening to someone else how we deal with this emotion can really help you to deal with yours.
Yeah, you can try it out, bounce their ideas off each other and see what works for you. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, it sounds like the message there from both of you guys is that opening up was only a positive step to make. Correct. It takes courage, but had positive outcomes for both of you in those experiences. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to look now at a couple of different examples of when we're seeing some emotions in action in sport. So we're going to watch some video clips and see what's going on here for some of these guys. First up, we've got Ben Flower.
It bounces off Blake Gibson. It's a try begging for Ben Flower. It's a try that was begging for Ben Flower. Oh, it's on. He's on, boys. It's on. Oh, it's down, and there's all sorts happening. First 2 minutes of the grand final, and we have a mass brawl.
Well, we should have had a try. Ben Flower, he was there for the taking, and then all of a sudden, everything just exploded.
There looked to be a punch thrown by a Wigan player out of St Helens man. St Helens took exception to it and flew in. Was it Ben Flower?
Lots of high hasn't moved. He's still now being treated by 2 physios and a doctor.
There's Ben Flower here. Keep an eye on that.
That's a red card, so that's a red card. That is a red card.
I think Ben Flower's grand final is over. I think Ben Flower's grand final is over.
I think he's one of the best props in the competition, but he should walk from the field.
There's little doubt in that, Brian. That is red card. Not once, not twice. Okay, he would have been frustrated over the fact that he could have scored a try. Instead, he took it out on Lance O'Hire. And the Saints standoff is still lying on the ground.
I'm going to say the one he threw stood up. He might have stayed on the field. The one on the ground might be the problem.
It's a send-off for Ben Flower in the first 2 minutes of the grand final.
Completely lost the plot. He knows it. Sean Wayne, the Wigan coach, will be furious. What on earth has he done?
The first ever man to see red in a grand final. Ben Flower is off. Wigan have got to play 78 minutes without him.
Well, I don't think the referee had any option whatsoever for the actions of that. The first one was bad enough. That is just unforgivable.
I could almost see him leaving Ben Flower on the pitch for the first punch. That
Okay, so we've got a lot of emotions running quite high here, I think, in this instance.
Yeah, that was early on in the game. I had the honour of coaching and playing with Benny Flower, and that was completely out of character for him. He's a fantastic guy, a really nice guy, and at that occasion, he just let his emotions get the better of himself. He didn't handle them well, and as a result, we're seeing clips like this, which are out of character for him, but they've defined him in some extent. To a lot of people, first thing you say, think of when you hear the name Benny Flower is that. Which is going to follow him around forever. He let himself down and his team at the time, but that's just not the guy he is. He just didn't manage his emotions particularly well on that night. Obviously, he's gone through a huge range of emotions, nerves, fear, anger. At this stage, he was nervous about the game, and instead of dealing well with those emotions, he dealt with them negatively. And he cost himself and his team. So it's a tough one, that one. But it's certainly not the sort of person he is. He's a fantastic bloke. He just didn't deal with those emotions well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, they can catch us out emotions. So the more we can understand them and what they're like for us, the more we can try and not have the response like we did on pitch, and put some space and be able to have a little bit more control over.
In that situation, you probably haven't got as much time to step back. Like we like to, like Kevin and I have talked about, you know, sometimes standing back and reflecting, which I like to do as well. But in those situations, sometimes you don't have that luxury. But he's just let the emotions get the better of him and reacted immediately.
Yeah, seen red in 2 different ways there, anger and literally with the card. All right, let's see. Hopefully a more positive one in this example. See what we've got.
A wide. It is a wide. It's a freebie for New Zealand. Ball number 1 again. Perfect Yorker. They've got to get 2. Guptill will get back. He's quick enough. Ah, he's got it. It's huge. It's gone. It's out of the park. Here's Archer again. Neesham gets him again. Will they go for 2? Guptill says yes, a misfield. More pressure. More pressure. 5 from 3 all of a sudden. He's hit another gap. Guptill will come back. Don't worry about it. It's going to make it. It's going to be on Martin Guptill. It's going to be on Martin Guptill. Guptill's going to push for 2. They've got to go. It's got to throw's got to go to the keeper's end. He's got it. England have won the World Cup by the barest of margins. By the barest of all margins. Absolute ecstasy for England. Agony. Agony for New Zealand. Wow.
This is an awesome clip, I think. It's just great to see how this is clearly the most high pressure environment you can probably be in your career as a cricketer here. And they managed to keep the calm, keep the cool, manage those emotions in the moment, and it's had a really positive impact on the performance there. And just the joy that you can see, the happiness after, ecstasy, I think they call it in the clip. You know, Kevin, you've had a massively successful career. Can you tell us a time you've had an experience like this one?
So yeah, it was back in 2015. We played a challenge semi-final with KR and against Warrington, and we won. And I remember this day was just amazing. Obviously, we won the game against the Horde. Like everyone thought we would be beaten by Warrington, but we managed to win the game, and it was massive because the club haven't reached the final for 35 years, something like that. And I remember it would just remind me when I was a little boy back in France and watching Challenge Cup on TV, and I never thought I would be involved in this kind of year one day, and it was just like too much emotion. I remember all I could feel is just crying, the crying of happiness, of feeling proud, and all the teammates was the same. Everyone just like couldn't believe what we just achieved, and seeing in the stand all the fans going absolutely crazy of happiness. It was really nice to see. And again after the game, seeing your partner or your friends and family back in France texting you and calling you to say how proud it was just lots of positive emotion, which is really nice to experience and to feel really. And even I remember at the night when we went back into the city, everyone just happy. It was a really nice feeling and memory.
Awesome. So I think, yeah, that just highlights how, you know, sometimes negative feelings can feel really intense and overwhelming, but you can also have that experience at the other end of the scale as well with the more positive experiences. They can have such intensity too. You know, sometimes in the hard times, it's hard to remember that is also available to us. That's a great example there. Okay, right. We're going to talk now about some strategies and hopefully run through some ideas about how you can begin to try out some different ways of dealing with your emotions. So we can hopefully, with starting to do these things, move from a place to responding rather than reacting in the way that we talked about that our body might be, you know, telling us to do in that moment. So first one is acceptance and becoming aware of your emotion and accepting the current experience in that moment. So this is really about starting to pay attention to what you're experiencing or what you're feeling in the moment, accepting it rather than judging it for how it is, or judging yourself for feeling something or not feeling something that you think you should. And this is a really nice way to start to notice some patterns as well. So for example, you might start to notice, you know, you've got Sunday evenings coming around, the work week is ahead of you, and you get to this kind of feeling of dread starts rising up inside you. And it's so tempting in that moment to just push it down, maybe reach for a beer, one of those, you know, more maybe unhelpful coping strategies. But just taking time to listen to this and accept, okay, right, I think I probably need to start paying attention to the fact that on Sunday I'm feeling this emotion. And that's when we can start to understand our emotions better and what's triggering them, and then begin to put into place some strategies to overcome those. So for me, I think acceptance is huge. In my own past experiences, when I have a bad spell of pain with my back, in the past, when I didn't manage that particularly well, I would get really frustrated and angry that maybe it might not mean that I can go out and do something that I plan to do. And then you just get into the spiral of negativity, really. So for me, accepting, okay, this is happening right now, and just taking a step back from that is the first step in going into a positive way of coping rather than a negative one. And then labeling as well, that it kind of ties into this, because if we can accept it and we can understand what it is in the moment, so taking a step back and just saying, this is anger, or for me, this is anxiety, and this is what anxiety feels like right now. So this is a way of kind of mindfully looking out for yourself and just accepting as well, back to that acceptance that we're human, we're going to experience these, and it can just be enough to stop you spiraling and getting into those negative patterns of thinking, and also the negative patterns of behavior that comes with the negative patterns of thoughts. And emotions aren't permanent. This is massive to remember, that emotions will pass. You might be feeling this right now, but it's not going to go on forever. I think this is a phrase we've heard a little bit during the pandemic, this too shall pass. And it's so true, and it's true with our emotions too, that in the moment it can feel like very overwhelming, and that it's not ever going to come to an end. But emotions are short term, and we can do things to get ourselves out of those patterns, like we've talked about today, some of the things that you guys have done. And it just gives you a little bit of space to then step back again and put some space between you and the emotion. And investigating as well. I think becoming detectives of our own emotions is a great way to look at it. And then you can start to understand what it is that's happened that may have triggered you feeling in such a way. And you can start to notice how you respond to different things. And once you do that, you can begin to learn from it, and then put in things into place if you need to do things differently, or you want to do things differently. So for example, if this is like a negative experience, say the Sunday night dreads are kicking in, rather than, closing in, reaching out for that beer, and it's spiraling downwards, taking a moment to accept, okay, I'm feeling this way right now, this is fear, or this is anxiety for me, it's going to pass, I know that it's going to pass because I don't feel this way throughout the whole week. Let's have a think about it, but also what can I do now to get myself out of this? Maybe that's go for a walk around the block, maybe that's forcing yourself to sit down and have dinner with your loved ones, even if you don't feel like it. So that's just one example. And also I think it's important here to think about the positives too, and how we can learn from those. Because it's tempting just to look at the negative emotions in this example, but what is it that you have done when you feel those real feelings of joy, or you feel like your energy is being kind of boosted again after an activity? So that might be that getting together with friends, you feel kind of like energized afterwards. So you can learn from that experience too, and think how you can plan more of that into your week or your month to boost you. And again, that's a really positive way to begin to build your own mental fitness. So for me, things I like to do are journaling. If I've got anxious thoughts going round and round in my mind, rather than them staying there, I like to get them down on paper, and then at least they're gone from my head, and I can look at them a little bit more objectively, and I can start to do some of these things. So that's something I find quite helpful. How about you guys? What have you got that you do to deal with emotions, and what's in your toolkit?
Well, for me, I always like to realize what it is I'm feeling. So that's that acceptance and that labeling the emotion. And now I realize it's okay to talk. So if it's a situation where I think someone else could help me, their point of view, I'll have a chat to a friend, pick up the phone and have a chat. I try to be more grateful for things each day. I know that's used a lot, that term, but for me, being grateful is about focusing more on something positive than a negative, because I think as a rule, we can tend to focus on the negatives instead of the positives. You can have so many positives there if you look for them, but we tend to find the negatives far more easy, and then that puts us in a negative state of mind. So I just try and take my focus from negative to positive and find something that I'm grateful for, find something that's good, and taking time to focus on that instead of that negative, and stepping back and reflecting, you know, instead of reacting immediately like we've spoken about throughout this workshop, taking time to think through things instead of reacting straight away. Which is usually in a negative way. If we react straight away, you can come at it from a different angle. You talk to a friend about it, as Kevin spoke about earlier, or you sit there and reflect. I might write some things down, even just going out for a walk, playing one of my favorite songs, just things like that, but trying to focus on something more positive. You know, like now I use my daughter as a tool. You know, like I'll go and play with her, or I'll do something with her, take her to the park. The other day I felt down, so I put her in the car, we went off to the park, and I came home feeling like a different person. You know, the weight of the world was off my shoulders with COVID. You've gone through all sorts of stresses about, you know, am I going to get paid again? When am I going back to work? There's all these stresses. It's ended up for me being the best thing that's ever happened. I've had so much more time. Initially, I thought the world was going to end, and I took that focus now, and I've had all the time with my daughter, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've had so much time with her, and it's been such a positive experience. And now I'm dreading going back to work because, you know, I'm not going to get as much time with my daughter. So what was initially a negative thing, which really struck fear and throughout my body, now it's been the most positive experience I've ever had. So it's just knowing how to deal with things, and knowing that we all deal with them differently.
Yeah, and I like the idea of that gratitude. That's a really nice tool. I think that you can build into your daily routine as well. Just as a really quick check-in, you know, with dinner or before bed, just 2-3 things you feel grateful for today. Just that proactive approach can have such benefits to your mental health. That's really nice.
Definitely.
How about you, Kevin?
For me, a big one is speaking up about it. So, for example, I've got an example. I've been working with a good friend of mine during my time in France, just to keep busy during the day. And sometimes I found myself away in the van and driving into like countryside, and I was like having loads of thoughts coming to my head, positive, negative. And my friend, like, he could see I was there physically, but not mentally. And he was like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And usually I would just say, "Oh no, everything is fine." But no, I was like speaking up about what I was thinking about, and again having a different view and perspective, or a different opinion, it really helped. And so definitely speaking up that's really work now. And the second, it will be doing something that makes you feel good. So another example, like 2 weeks ago, we had like a long weekend for the French National Day. We've been like having a nice time eating, drinking, and I wasn't really training, and I was starting to feel a little bit really bad with myself, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. On the Tuesday, the day after the National Day, I was like, okay, so today I'm going for a run and a gym session, and after that, the feeling you feel when you finish like a good session, you feel pumped, you feel good about yourself, you feel refreshed, and after I had a really nice healthy meal, and straight away pull me back on track. From there you can build on and do what was good for you, and again, just I use loads of little notes. I write lots of things down, things I need to do or I want to do, and all the time, like when talk about being grateful, I go back to those notes, and it just like I use it as a reminder that aren't as dark as we think, and yeah, that's really work. And like Damien, just spending time with my son during the pandemic has been massive. All the time, I'm like, if he wasn't there, well, I've been able just to spending really quality time, and because they're so young, they don't realize what's happening around, and they can really send you some positive energy, and to focus on other things, really.
Fantastic. So yeah, doing the things that you know gives you joy and picks you out of that kind of negative spiral sounds like it's worked really well for both of you. Thank you very much for sharing those ones. Okay, we're going to move on now, and just we're going to wrap up now, and just remind ourselves that emotions are positive, emotions are negative, and we as humans will experience the whole range and spectrum of them. And as we've said throughout, that can change minute by minute, day by day. But ultimately, they're there to protect us. They help us to survive, thrive, and avoid danger. And they have their function in our lives, which we can, just by tuning in to them a little bit more, we can start to understand them and ourselves a little bit better, and try and work together with them rather than against them at times. And I like this quote here: "You can't control the waves, but you can learn to surf." I think that's a really nice one, because we've seen, in that moment, Ben Flower did not control what he did. And sometimes we really don't have control over our initial responses. But by just listening to those moments and understanding which of those emotions we feel on the spectrum at what times, we can start to put some strategies in place to learn to ride it out a little bit better and learn to surf those waves. So yeah, I think that's a nice way to look at it. Are there any lasting comments from you guys you want to add in at this point?
Well, just for me, like you've just said, just remember that your emotions change all the time. And don't feel down on yourself, or don't think that you're broken or there's something wrong if you're feeling negative, because we all do. Don't be afraid to talk to your friends. Have that person, your family member, a good friend that you can speak to, pick up the phone, and don't be afraid to express your emotions to other people, because you know what, everyone's in the same situation. And when you do finally speak and have that courage to speak, you'll feel a lot better about it, and you'll realize that you're not on your own.
Absolutely. Really good point. Okay. So help is out there as well. Support is always available to you. We've talked a lot today about reaching out, and that's a really positive way to manage your own mental health and fitness. So in office hours, the Rugby League Cares teams and the Offload Foundations are available if you'd like to contact them. If you do feel like your emotions are becoming too much or overwhelming, or you just want to learn how to manage them better. Out of hours, 24/7, there's support in the form of Samaritans. And I think it's key to remember that Samaritans aren't just there if you're feeling in crisis. They can be a person you can call up. Sometimes just having someone a little bit more removed than a family member or a friend can be a really helpful tool just to get some things off your mind if you are feeling down. Calm as well, there's a helpline for men dedicated to feeling down or in crisis. There's a number available there. Hub of Hope is a really nice resource where you can find local mental health services in your area. It's an app you can download, also go to their website. And just, I think just reach out and don't be afraid to make that first step. If any of the things you've heard today or we've talked about today have rung a bell with you, the help's out there, so do take it. And it's a thank you from me for you guys at home for tuning in today, for you both, Kevin and Damien, for being so open and honest in the discussions we've had today. Really appreciate that. And if you'd like to find out more about some of the content, there's loads more of these downloadable workshops available on the Rugby League Cares website, so head there for more information. And thank you very much.